She was sitting 3 feet away from me in a white floral dress, smiling at my vows with tears in her eyes, and the whole time, her fingers were moving under the table, texting my husband. The man I had just promised my life to. And she was my sister. My name is Bella and I am 29 years old. Welcome to Star Tales. I want to start by telling you something I have never said out loud before, not to my mother, not to my therapist, not even to myself in the quiet moments at 3 in the morning when the truth of everything hits hardest. I want to tell you that I used to believe loyalty was something that ran in the blood. That if someone shared your childhood, your dinner table, your secrets, your scars, they were yours forever. I believed that with everything I had. And it took one wedding day, one buzzing phone, and one moment of carelessness to shatter that belief so completely that I am still finding the pieces. Her name is Camille. She is 2 years older than me, and for most of my life, she was my whole world. We grew up in a small town in Ohio, the 2 daughters of a woman who worked double shifts at a diner and a father who left when I was 5 and Camille was 7. That kind of childhood either breaks you apart or welds you together. For Stati Uniti, it welded. We shared everything, clothes, a bedroom, a twin mattress when the heater broke one winter and we had to keep each other warm. I thought we shared values too. I thought we shared a code. When I met Daniel, Camille was the first person I called. I remember standing outside the coffee shop where we had our first date, still buzzing from 2 hours of conversation that had felt like 15 minutes, and I called her before I even got in my car. She screamed. She made me replay every single detail 3 times. She said, "Bella, I can hear it in your voice. This one is different." And she was right. Daniel was different. He was kind and patient and funny in a way that snuck up on you, and he looked at me like I was something worth looking at. After years of relationships that left me smaller than I started, he made me feel like I was growing. He introduced them about a month into dating. We all went to dinner together, the 3 of us, at this Italian place downtown with the candles in wine bottles and a bread basket that Camille and I demolished before the server even took our order. It was a good night. Easy and warm and full of laughter. Daniel charmed her, which I expected, because Daniel charmed everyone. And Camille was on her best behavior, bright and funny and generous in the way she could be when she wanted something to go well. I drove home that night feeling like my 2 favorite people in the world had finally met, and the world was whole. What I did not see, what I was not looking for, was the way Camille watched him when she thought I was not paying attention. The way her laughter was slightly too loud at his jokes. The way she touched his arm once when she was making a point, just a half-second longer than necessary. I did not see any of it, or maybe I saw it and filed it somewhere I did not want to go. Either way, I told myself the dinner had been perfect, and I meant it. Daniel proposed 14 months later. He did it on a hiking trail we had walked together on our 3rd date, at the exact spot where I had stopped to catch my breath, and he had taken my hand and told me he was glad I was out of breath because it meant I would not run away from what he was about to say. He had remembered the spot. He had planned the whole thing around a memory I had not even realized he was keeping. He said yes before he finished the sentence. Camille was my maid of honor. Obviously. There was no conversation about it, no formal asking, no moment of decision. It was simply understood. She was my sister. She threw me a bachelorette weekend, organized the bridal shower, drove 2 hours to help me find my dress. She sat across from me in a bridal boutique while I tried on 16 gowns and cried at the 17th, and she cried too, and the woman helping us handed us both tissues and said she loved her job. That day felt sacred. Camille felt sacred. The wedding was on a Saturday in late September. The venue was a converted barn outside the city, draped in string lights and eucalyptus, with long wooden tables and a dance floor that smelled like sawdust and candle wax. It was everything I had wanted. Simple and warm and real. About 80 guests. Our mother in the front row, already crying before the ceremony started. And Camille, standing at the altar beside me in a deep sage dress, holding my bouquet while I held Daniel's hands and said the words I had spent 3 nights memorizing because I wanted them to come out perfectly. She was smiling. The whole time, she was smiling. That soft, full smile that I had known since we were children, the one that crinkled the corners of her eyes and made her look like she was lit from somewhere inside. He looked at her twice during the ceremony, the way you look at someone you love when you want them to know you see them. And both times, she was right there, present, radiant, exactly where she was supposed to be. What I did not know, standing at that altar, was that her phone was in her hand beneath the fold of her dress. That she had been texting him. That the conversation had started before the ceremony even began and had continued, message by message, through my vows, through the ring exchange, through the moment the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," and Daniel kissed me and the room erupted and I felt like the luckiest woman alive. He did not find out that day. I want to be clear about that, because the truth took time to surface, the way certain things do, slowly, then all at once. The first crack appeared 3 weeks after the wedding. We were back from our honeymoon, still living in the warm haze of newlywed life, still leaving little notes for each other on the kitchen counter and cooking dinners that took too long and eating them too late. Daniel's phone buzzed on the coffee table while he was in the shower. He was not snooping. He was not suspicious. He was sitting beside it reading a book, and the screen lit up with a preview of a message from a contact named Cam. He looked at it the way you look at anything that passes through your peripheral vision. Reflexively. Without intent. And what I saw in that half-second preview was enough to make my stomach drop straight through the floor. It was 5 words. 5 words that should not have existed in any universe where my marriage was what I believed it to be. I keep thinking about us. He put down my book. He sat very still. He listened to the shower running and I told myself there were 100 explanations. Cam could be anyone. It could be a coworker, a college friend, a misunderstanding. It could be nothing. He was a newlywed. He was not going to turn 5 words into a catastrophe. But the words stayed with me. They lodged somewhere behind my sternum and would not leave. He went to sleep that night with Daniel's arm around me and those 5 words circling in my head, and by morning I had convinced myself to let it go. He almost managed it. He held on to almost for 2 more weeks. Then I found the email. I was using Daniel's laptop to print a document, mine was updating, his was open, I needed something printed before a work call. He was not looking for anything. I want you to understand that. He was not a suspicious wife on a hunt. He was a woman trying to print a PDF. But the browser was open, and the email tab was loaded, and I saw the subject line of a message from Camille before I could stop myself. I don't know how to keep pretending. He sat down. He opened it. He read the whole thread. It went back 6 months. 6 months before the wedding. The messages were not explicit, not at first, they were the kind of carefully worded thing that people write when they know they are doing something wrong and are trying to give themselves plausible deniability. But they escalated. They described feelings. They described moments between them that I had never been told about, conversations they had alone, a night 2 months before the wedding when Daniel had driven across town to help Camille with something and had stayed for 3 hours and I had been told it was only 45 minutes. They described the wedding day. Camille had written, "When you were saying your vows to her I was right there and it was the hardest thing I have ever done." And Daniel had written back, "I know. I am sorry. I don't know what I'm doing." I do not remember closing the laptop. I do not remember standing up. I remember being in the kitchen with both hands flat on the counter, looking at the tile grout, breathing very slowly because I understood on some animal level that if I stopped controlling my breath I would stop being able to function, and I needed to function. I needed to think. What I felt in those first minutes was not rage. It was something colder and more total than rage. It was the sensation of a floor disappearing. It was realizing that the thing you have been standing on was never solid to begin with, and the falling had already started before you noticed. My husband. My sister. The two people who had stood closest to me on the happiest day of my life. I did not confront either of them that day. I know that surprises people when I tell them. But I had learned something important from my childhood, from being a girl who needed to hold things together because no one else would, and that lesson was this: if you move too fast, you lose the truth. People lie. People reshape what happened to protect themselves. If I came at Daniel with shaking hands and a cracked voice, he would manage the story. If I called Camille screaming, she would play the victim. He had one advantage, and that advantage was that they did not know I knew. He was going to use it. He spent the next 3 days building a picture. I am not proud of all of it. He checked Daniel's phone when he slept, methodically, going back as far as the messages were stored. He created a folder on my own laptop and documented everything I found: screenshots, dates, timelines. He called a friend of mine who worked in HR and understood legal documentation, and I asked her, very casually, what evidence looked like in a divorce proceeding. He contacted my bank separately and quietly moved a portion of our joint savings into a personal account I had held since college. He was not irrational. He was precise. And underneath the precision, I was in a grief so profound I could barely eat. On the 4th day, I called Camille. He kept my voice completely normal. He told her I was having a hard week and asked if she wanted to come over for dinner, just the two of us, get us a night. Daniel would make himself scarce. She said yes immediately, warmly, with that voice I had trusted my entire life. She said she had been meaning to call me anyway. She said she missed me. She came over on a Thursday evening. He cooked pasta. He poured wine. He set the table the way we always did growing up, mismatched plates and cloth napkins because our mother always said real napkins made any meal feel like an occasion. We sat across from each other and we talked for an hour about nothing, about work and a TV show we were both watching and a mutual friend's new apartment. And the whole time I watched her, really watched her, and I saw something I had missed my whole life: the performance of it, the way her warmth was calibrated. The way she managed every room she was in, including rooms with only me in them. He let her refill her glass. He let the silence go soft and comfortable the way it does when two people have known each other forever. And then I put my phone on the table, face up, with the email thread pulled open on the screen, and I slid it across to her without a word. He watched her face change. I have thought about that moment many times since, because it was one of the most clarifying things I have ever witnessed. The performance stopped. The warmth dropped away like a coat falling off a hook. What was underneath was something raw and guilty and, in a way I had not expected, almost relieved. Like she had been waiting for this. She said my name. Just my name, the way people do when they have no other words. He told her not to. He told her I did not want the explanation she had prepared, because I knew she had won. He told her I had read everything. He told her I knew about the night 2 months before the wedding, and the texts during the ceremony, and the email she had sent the week after the honeymoon. And then I told her something I meant with my whole heart. He told her that the marriage was over. Not because she had made it impossible, she had certainly tried, but because any man who could stand at an altar and speak vows to my face while carrying on something like this was not a man I was going to rebuild with. He had already spoken to a lawyer. The paperwork was being prepared. What I had not told her yet was the rest. She started to cry. Real tears, and I believe they were real. I do not think Camille is entirely without feeling, which almost makes it worse. She said she was sorry. She said it had never gone as far as it looked, that it was emotional, that she had tried to end it before the wedding and she knew she should have. She said she loved me. She said I was her sister. He let her talk. He let her work through all of it, and when she was done, I told her what I had done. He had told our mother. Not everything. Not in a way that would break her. But no. Because our mother had been asking for months about a piece of property she and our aunt owned together, a small rental house that had been in the family for decades, And there had been a conversation brewing about whether Camille should be added to the deed as a co-manager. Given that she lived nearby and had been helping to oversee it, our mother had mentioned it to me, casually, as a done deal. She had asked me what I thought. I had told her, quietly and with documentation, what I knew about Camille's character. The deed addition was not happening. And our mother, who had worked double shifts her whole life for us, who had sacrificed things I will never fully understand, now knew that one of her daughters had smiled through the other's wedding while betraying her in ways that would take years to name properly. Camille's face when I told her that was something I will carry for a long time. Not with satisfaction, exactly. It is too complicated for satisfaction. But with the understanding that consequences are not cruelty. That accountability is not revenge for its own sake but the natural weight of choices made without regard for anyone else. She left shortly after. She did not finish her wine. She barely made it to the door before she was sobbing, and I stood in my kitchen and listened to her car pull out of the driveway and felt something I can only describe as the quiet after a storm, when everything is ruined and also, finally, still. The divorce from Daniel was not as explosive as you might imagine. He knew, when I served the papers, that I had everything. He had the grace to be ashamed, or something that looked enough like shame that I accepted it. He did not contest anything significant. We divided what there was to divide. He moved out in November, and by January the apartment was mine again, quieter than I wanted and exactly as honest as I needed it to be. The thing about rebuilding after something like this is that nobody warns you how long the grief lasts. Not just for the husband, but for the sister. For the version of her I had carried in my heart my whole life. For the girl who shared my mattress in the cold and whispered to me about the kinds of lives we were going to have. That girl was real. She existed. The adult she became, the one who made the choices she made, those two people coexist inside my memory, and I have not found a clean way to reconcile them. Maybe I will not. Maybe that is all right. Camille and I have not spoken since that Thursday dinner. My mother has not said much about it directly. She is not a woman who narrates her feelings out loud, but she came to visit me in February and she brought groceries and she cooked the soup she used to make us when we were sick, the one with the soft noodles and the bay leaves, and she put it in front of me without explanation. That meant everything. I am not going to tell you I am fine, because I think fine is one of the words we use when we are too tired to explain the truth. But I am steady. I am here. I have a studio apartment with too many plants and a cat named after a poet and a therapist I see every other Thursday who has the patience of a mountain. I have friends who showed up with wine and fury and love when I told them what happened. I have a job I am good at. I have mornings that are mine and evenings that ask nothing of me and a future that is unwritten in all the ways that used to terrify me and now feel, slowly, like possibility. I chose to tell this story because I spent a long time feeling ashamed of it, as though being betrayed was something I should have prevented, as though loving people who were not worthy of that love was a flaw in my judgment I needed to hide. But I do not believe that anymore. I loved fully and honestly and without reservation, and that is not a weakness. The weakness belonged to the people who could not meet that love without cheapening it. If you are sitting somewhere right now having recognized something in this story, some detail, some feeling, some cold particular shock of seeing your own life in someone else's words, I want you to know that I see you. And I want you to know that the floor does not disappear forever. Eventually you find something solid to stand on again. It just takes longer than anyone tells you, and that is all right too. If you ever imagined something like this could happen, let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video, and subscribe to Star Tales so you never miss a story like this.